Hello, I'm Penelope Mavor, and welcome back to the Earth Converse podcast, where we explore our relationship and conversations with the earth, all in the hope of inspiring a deeper connection with ourselves, each other, and the earth that is our home. And we like to sort of mix things up. So this is going to be literally turning the tables.
Penelope is being interviewed herself today because if, like me, you are a regular viewer or listener to this podcast, then I'm sure you will have wanted to find out more about her. She's so good at talking to people and, extolling information in a very kind and gentle way that sometimes they didn't even know they had in them. But there's so much we would like to know about Penelope herself. So here she is, and very graciously in her home has accepted to be interviewed herself. I'm Susanne Haegele. I was interviewed by Penelope on episode 31, and we both live in Mallorca, but we are not in the same room. I'm in Bini Salem, and she's in Puig Punyent. So show us around a little bit, Penelope.
A little bit of
Where are all these interviews taking place? What is this all?
Well, I'll show you a little bit of Puig Punyent, where I am. So I'm in the mountains, a little pueblo in Mallorca, and sort of the southwest. This is the 5-star hotel that is closed down. We've got the school, we've got Park Verde, we've got, and then over the plug there is Fatima. But that's what, and it's amazing that actually the roosters aren't calling at this moment. They're quite vocal. But yeah, I feel very grateful to be in this little part of the world.
So people usually associate Mallorca with, the beach. There's a bit of a cliche about it. But you moved here, 4 years ago, and went straight for the mountains.
Yeah.
Do people know, do you think that are they aware that there is such a thing as the Tramontana mountain range? And are people surprised when you show them where you live or photos of where you are?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I visited my sister like for 20 years coming to Mallorca. I never went to the Tramontana, but I'm a real, Aries or sort of mountain sheep. And so I just love the mountains. I orientate myself to the mountains. And in fact, sometimes I have this little joke that I forget that I'm on an island and there's sea. So very, very rarely that I go to the sea. And actually, one podcast recently about this woman saying that she was orientated to the mountains, but going more to the sea to really tap into that part of her in terms of that letting go or embracing her femininity and that sort of sense of being held by the ocean. So I'm doing more ocean.
Oh, you're trying to do more ocean. Well, it's warming up now, and I think you're a Wim Hof graduate, so you're probably not afraid of the cold anyway. I don't know if people know what Wim Hof is. Do you want to just in a few words explain why this has something to do with your tolerance of the cold?
It has transformed my acceptance of the cold. So this guy, he's Dutch. He's a sort of a crazy adventurer, and through his own pain of his wife committing suicide and him searching for those answers, and he searched, all around the world, different religions, different practices, and he found himself jumping into a cold pond one day, and it just, and his consciousness changed. And so he's created this whole sort of belief system and conscious practice of breathing and cold water immersion, or even just embracing the cold. And so a guy here, Luke Wills, runs it.
And when did you train with Luke?
Yeah, 3 years ago maybe. And it was really interesting. So where you sit in the ice in an ice bath, and when you relax, and of course it's like meditation, isn't it? When we don't resist, there is, we can accept. So it was a really transformational thing. And I have been able to either, cold water showers or enjoy the enjoy the sea. But I think it's really interesting, you know, when we brace against the cold. I'm wearing actually a really thick jumper right now. In terms of, yeah, if we accept and don't judge it, we can relax into it. I think that's really interesting.
You were just mentioning meditation. Another relatively extreme thing that you've done several times is to participate in Vipassana meditation retreats. Maybe you can explain to your viewers and listeners who are not familiar what this is. And I think you've done it several times. What has it done for you?
So Vipassana is meditation technique, and I'm talking about a practice, a guy called S.N. Goenka. He was from Burma or Myanmar, and then he had suffered headaches, and he went around the world trying to find, you know, an answer to that. It's the sort of very similar what we do.
And similar to what Wim Hof did. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. We just search, don't we? So anyway, and we're trained, basically, it's the ancient, sort of the real, I would say, and you know, the teachings of Buddha, you know, as pure as he could, in honor of that. And it's about that we, you know, we all suffer, and we're either craving or rejecting. And that we know deep down it's possible to change, and things change, you know, it's never is fixed. I mean, you know, we weren't born like this, or, you know, things come and go, but we know this on an intellectual level. But he's saying until we go in and observe our own sensations. So his practice, so 10 days silent, you know, in silence. The first days is just concentrating on your breath and focusing your mind. And then the Vipassana technique, which is like an insight technique, is you scan your body and observe the sensations coming and going. And sometimes there will be nice sensations, and you'll be observing yourself. Maybe you want to hold on to them, or you feel pain or rejecting it. And so my friend, dear Rachel Ford, told me about this when I was 20, and because she had done it. Wow. And I just and it took me another 20 years to actually do it. I think it's really interesting, you know, where when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And so I took myself off. I was doing I started my PhD in mindfulness, and but I thought, I want to be mindful. I want to be really immersed in the practice. So my first Vipassana, I was literally in plane. I'm not so flexible. I'm not a yogi like you. You know, I'm really sort of tense. Anyway, so there's this particular part in the Vipassana, which for 4 times a day, you have to sit still and not move. And yes, it is a little bit of bringing the pain and seeing if you can just sit with it with awareness and non-judgment. And my knees, I was just crying. And actually the teacher would say, how's your equanimity? It's like, obviously it's not going, you know, I'm just judging. It was like this pain. I don't want it. I can't do it. I don't like it. This is not working. Anyway, on the 9th day, I just, you know, in terms of observed it with no judgment, and it went. The pain just went. And it was like, oh my goodness, this is a technique that's working for me. So I returned. It was in Italy, the lovely, you know, Vipassana retreat there. And so I would do maybe once a year, or sometimes twice a year, and also volunteer as well. And I've kept that practice up. So that's 11 years, every day. And I feel kinder to myself. I'm less judgmental of myself and others. I can reset better. You know, if there's something upsets me, I can just bounce back better. I have an appreciation of stillness, quietness, observing ourselves. And I think, I can be.
That's incredible. What a strength of mind to have developed. And what a tool to have, and what a difference it would make in a person's life to live like that. That's why you're so serene and why you glow like that.
Oh, you're so lovely. I reflect on how lucky I feel like I've had that practice, because I think, COVID has shown us, or the quarantine, that the only freedom is in our own mind, isn't it?
And also it gave you, and it gave all of us, to have some kind of technique like that, which other people didn't necessarily have, and really struggled a lot more with being forced to stay inside, or away from their loved ones, or and it's something I don't know, there's something in you that likes extreme experiences, I think, no? Because I mean, I see similarities between you and Goenka and Wim Hof, because you're also somebody who's been searching all through the world and trying different techniques. I mean, you're originally from New Zealand, but you left, what age were you when you left?
I was actually 30. That's actually quite old, like old, because most people, like they'll work for a couple of years, or, study, and then have, and then go off overseas. So yeah, I went when I was 30. Yeah.
But then you went in the UK, and
yeah.
then
I did my MBA in Italy, and then came back to England to pay for it, and then ended up, wanted to go to Roma, and then about 7 years there, and then 4 years ago, just about now, I think this is my anniversary, 4th-year anniversary in Mallorca. Yeah.
Wow, so you arrived just around your birthday. April is, or end of March, beginning of April is a good time for you to, with the energy of spring, to bring changes and to develop a different aspect of yourself.
Yeah.
And another relatively, let's say, for some people would label that as relatively extreme, is what you've done with the School of Lost Borders. You have gone more than once on longer fasts in nature, and I think that was in the US, because people, people need to be aware that you really are a citizen of the world. You have interviewed quite a few of us who are citizens of the world, because we come from one place and have lived in others, and but you are like that too. First of all, you speak 3 languages: English, Italian, and Spanish.
That is so not true.
It's so true. It's very true. Listeners and viewers, don't believe her. She's very humble. And so you're from New Zealand, which for most people is like the most exotic place in the universe. Then you've lived in different places in the UK. You've explored a lot of the Lake District, the wilder parts of the UK. You've lived in different parts of Italy. Now you're in Mallorca. But some of your more formative experiences, I would say, were actually in the US. So there's something about those mountains and deserts of the Western USA, which really has had a big impact on you.
In fact, I remember at my first Vision Quest, and I was in circle, and I said, this was my sort of offering, my closing statement, basically going, the United States has created a lot of harm in the world, and internationally, like in terms of, and it's ironic that I come here on the land to heal.
But also not just internationally, the US is a place of great suffering. I mean, the lands where you were lands where indigenous people have suffered. But there's a community that you are part of, I would argue, of people in the US. Some of them you have interviewed, I'm thinking of Emerald North, Bill Plotkin, and other people who are big healers. They use nature and psychology to heal themselves and others. And you're a part of that tribe, I would say.
Yeah, it's a lovely it is a lovely community, in fact, and I love, actually, because so the 4 of them, Scott, the 3 of them actually, so Scott, Emerald, and Ray were my first Vision Quest, and that's when Corey was in the circle, and she and Scott got together afterwards, and then the 4 of them have been Southwest Passage, and so yeah, Scott Emerald and Ray have done, my training, my mirroring training, and I've sat in circle with them. So it's fun. It is interesting that those three people just keep on popping up in my life, and um, yeah, it is. I think the wilderness, with School of Lost Borders, established by Meredith Little and Stephen Foster, they have the teachings of indigenous people, and have wanted to make it in a what is the modern day equivalent of that, and in terms of what's true and respectful of cultures in a sort of a integrative way. And there is a shadow to it, as Emerald said on the
Episode
episode.
2.
Yeah, episode 4. And
Episode 4.
yeah, and she but it's sort of like, I think they really tap into that there's a yearning for humans to be connected with the land,
Yes.
and be in ceremony with the land, or intentionality with the land. And I think it taps into that. Yeah.
Which is something that you've very kindly and generously also brought to Mallorca, because you offer the format Solo Together, where you use your skills as a coach and facilitator to take people out into this wild mountain that you showed us earlier, and then you facilitate them being alone for 2 hours and then come back together in a circle. It's a very powerful experience. And although you always do it very simply and humbly, all that experience and that work on yourself that you've just explained that you did before all shines through in the way you hold these events.
Thank you. And I love, like, in terms of where your offerings, like, I have everybody. I've got a singer in front of me who closes a few circles, haven't you, with your beautiful voice? But I think it does feel like, and I think that's the thing what you said about that everybody brings something. But yeah, it is. There is a background. The story of Picasso. Like, somebody comes up and asks him to draw a picture, and he goes, and then he goes, that will be $100 or whatever. I don't know. And they go, what? It only took you 2 seconds. It is that, but it's a lifetime. So yeah, we've all got that.
Exactly. And I think that's who you are as well. I mean, somewhere along that path of, studying and traveling the world, sitting for 10 days in Vipassana meditation once a year, going to fast 4 days in the wilderness in the US, doing the Wim Hof method, that makes you the coach you are. I think there's a lot of people nowadays who, call themselves coaches, and you actually went and got proper certification for it as well, didn't you? But I think, I wonder if that's what Julia Middleton, who's also on one of our episodes here, if that's what she saw in you. I mean, there was something that people who then were your mentors must have seen in you, that got you from urban planning to being a coach, and such a long and big career in that area that's still ongoing. What happened there? What do you think they saw in you, and how does all these extreme experiences that you've put yourself through or enjoyed inform your coaching?
Lived on a houseboat in Little Venice, and the landlords were a couple, and the woman is Canada Gawler, and she is a leadership coach and facilitator, and beautiful offerings. And anyway, I think I had, because I was working in regeneration and it was a strategy manager for that, and I was talking about where the frustration is that we had, technically this really good strategy because we had all these experts, but it was because the leaders in the different boroughs wouldn't talk to each other. And I was just at this frustration that that's where it stops, because the leaders weren't having the conversations they needed to, and they were in conflict and they weren't collaborating. So it must have sparked something in her. And so her friend runs Common Purpose International, Alison Coburn, who's just wonderful. And then she put me in touch with Julia, who was the CEO. So I think, because I think there's something, I love that bigger picture and the integration of social, economic, environment. And Common Purpose was about, where leaders have their own responsibility for their own organization, but have a wider responsibility to society, particularly the community they were in. So I think that was me. And I think, yeah. And so, but I had it, and in Common Purpose at the time, it wasn't really a coaching thing, it was more facilitating. And I did this training about how to facilitate a group. I had never done that. And one of the advice was, when you stand up and you just stay still and don't say anything, and people will gradually be quiet. You'll hold the space. You have to command the space. Anyway, my first group, I was taking over a group midway through a program. It was a year-long program, and we were in Brighton. And then I stood up, and my boss, who my direct boss, wasn't Julia, was sitting there, giving me the opportunity and observing me. And so I stood there and just said nothing in the circle. And he was like, oh my God, what is she doing? She's lost her nerve. She can't do it. It was really funny. But it was just about sort of, yes, I'm okay in the space. And I love putting people together and facilitating conversations. And yeah, so
after the facilitation training, you actually became a certified coach?
No, I did facilitation with Common Purpose. So that was all about helping their dialogue and me creating those conversations. Then I went off to do my MBA. I loved Common Purpose, but I wanted to, explore, that international, and deepen that, and have my own year experience and total immersion and being in Italy and all that. And part of, at the end of an MBA, you have to do a stage. So yeah, like 2 months. And I just thought, oh God, I was 35. It's like, I'm not going to work over summer for an Italian company. In fact, I could have, because I could have learned Italian and got a better, anyway, but that's another story. Choices we make. So I just thought, what I'll do is I'll buy a bike and bike around Italy instead. And I did that.
A lover of extreme experiences. That's what you would do. Yeah.
And then put together a proposal for the end of the MBA. But it was a wonderful experience.
You biked all around Italy. How far did that take you? That must have been incredible. And the people you met along the way.
Oh, amazing. It was a beautiful experience.
Where did you start, and what kind of a giro did you do?
Oh, just literally Giro d'Italia. So I just went from Trieste down the Adriatico, and then went to Sicily and stayed in Sicily for a few days, and then went back up the other side. And
wow.
Yeah.
But that would have taken a really long time. Or did you hop on some trains somewhere?
No, I did do a train. Just at the final bit into from just in terms of the north, and because I was really tired by this time. It was 6 weeks, and
wow.
So yeah. So
I would never have thought that you could do that much in 6 weeks without hopping on trains sometimes.
Yeah. But It was just lovely. I just sort of did, just would bike and camp, and no, it was a beautiful experience, and also tough. There were moments when
I'm sure there were.
But then when I decided to go back to England. I saw this advertisement for a leadership consultant and coach with Lane 4. I think it was a commercial development post for Lane 4. So Lane 4 is a leadership, performance organization. Founded by an Olympic swimmer, Adrian Morehouse, a sports psychologist, Graham Jones, and a business development guy, using the sports metaphor in business. So,
So
anyway,
they liked you were perfect because you had an MBA, but you were a high performance athlete at the same time.
well, it's all relative, isn't it? So I think at that time they were wanting different people. So usually they would have, Olympic sports people or sports psychologists, and they were wanting to expand and sort of diversify. So they brought a group of us at the time, and I was one of them. And so yeah, they did like that sort of international. I'd just done an international MBA and did this, obviously like a good challenge. So yeah, and then literally I was called, I was then a coach. We'd done our internal training, and I was a coach. And it was interesting about the legitimacy of that, how you feel that. But like you said, in terms of, there's lots of people unqualified who call themselves coach, but they have the essence of it. Like, coaching comes from all sectors, all industries, and it's about believing in somebody, asking, listening, helping the other, help the other think. So you don't necessarily need a qualification for that, but I like to see that it is getting more rigorous. And through Lane 4, we did our own accreditation with the European Mentoring Coaching Council, and did that exploration. And then when I went to Italy, I did another master's in coaching, and the International Coaching Federation qualification and certification. So yeah, I like that rigor. I like being part of.
And it's great for people who entrust themselves or their organizations to you to know the personal background, but also the professional qualifications that you bring to the job. You've worked with all sorts of individuals and organizations. Do you tend to work more with individuals or more with organizations? And organizations, are they more private companies or institutions? Because I think you worked with UNESCO amongst other things, haven't you?
Yeah, lovely. So it is a mix. And what I do love is a international, like a leadership group, like an executive development that is multicultural, global, and it's like a long program with like modules, like face to face, but in between you get that coaching opportunity. They're my favorite because you see,
Wow.
like, it's deep experiences, and then you're coaching and seeing the progression. I love them. um, I so back when I studied sustainability, I have a little story. So back when I studied sustainability in New Zealand, I thought I wanted to work for the United Nations. And then when I lived in Brighton, I was part of this organization which matched older people who wanted to stay in their home that were alone, and wanted company, with younger people who needed,
Accommodation.
accommodation. And I was matched with Professor Hans Singer. So Professor Hans Singer is an economist, and he was one of the economists who helped found the World Food Program. When I lived with him, and I remember, so September the 11th, 2001, he was being awarded the Food for Life Award for his contribution in reducing world hunger. And I lived with him for 6 months. It's so amazing. And I feel, so when I went to Italy and got work through Impact Italia, I got the opportunity to work with the Food and Agriculture Organization, the World Food Program, UNESCO. So I feel whenever I do anything for the UN, I think of Hans.
And you do it for him in a sense, or you continue his work. He passed it on to you in a sense. Amazing. And that's taken you all over the world. I think just before lockdown last year, you were in Rwanda, weren't you?
Yeah.
Who were you in Rwanda for, if it's okay to talk about it?
Yeah, so this is the Impact program, so Impact International. So collaborate with them, and that I love, I've interviewed a few of them, and I love the experiential nature. This program was 3 people, so I led, because I had led the European program, and had experience there, so they wanted that continuity. And then we had somebody from Ethiopia and a French speaker. So we were, yeah, it was wonderful. But Rwanda, what an incredible place! So humbling, such wisdom in healing, and dialogue to heal, and an extraordinary, like they talk about the center of Africa and the heart of Africa, and what they can give us in terms of the world is just phenomenal.
I bet it is, yeah.
Yeah.
And was it your first big taste of Africa? Do you feel like there's more for you to explore there, or?
Oh, so huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I was I was studying political science in university, and I had the opportunity. My dad was part of Lions Exchange International, and it was about young people going into different places. And I chose South Africa, and it's because I wanted to understand it, and also there was this guilt, and I knew it at the time, because Nelson Mandela hadn't been released there. He was released a couple of weeks after I left. So it was around that time, and I just thought, why am I going there? It's really ignorant, and there's part of it, there's the shame of doing that, and it was the personal, I wanted to go, as opposed to the collective idea of boycotting.
Mm-hmm.
Had
you shouldn't, yeah.
Yeah, an extraordinary experience with people in the townships, and different parts, whether it be Durban or Pretoria or Johannesburg, or so I went there. I'd been in Zimbabwe as well, and I'm humbled by Africa as the whole continent. I had a lovely experience, and very formative experience in Nigeria for work as well. But like increasingly, and I do think about this, when I left South Africa, I thought about I wanted to travel through the whole continent, and I wanted to do international development, and I went back, but I realized I didn't want to be that white person.
You were ahead of your time, because this is a big issue that's recently come up, isn't it? It's a relatively recent discourse in international aid, where they're becoming more and more aware that there's a problem with white people coming to help people in Africa who actually have the resources to help themselves, and have a lot of their own, who have either studied abroad or developed good programs in Africa itself.
The one-to-one coaching, because of COVID, they said there was this guy, and he was telling me this story of what he was an engineer. And he said, because of COVID, somebody from Amsterdam couldn't come, so we had to solve it ourselves. And it was sort of like, and so that whole discussion, like, about what that means, and sort of both the individual satisfaction of that, like we can solve it ourselves, and then it led to a beautiful, systemic conversation. And yeah, it's a big thing. Like big thing. Topic. I mean, but just the awareness of that, and I don't know, like.
And in general, having worked with people of so many different cultures, and big or small organizations, individuals and groups, institutions, are there recurring issues that come up again and again in the groups? Could you, in a sense, say that they all look different and talk different, but it's all the same at the end of the day? There's this really nice story at the beginning of Eat, Pray, Love, where Elizabeth Gilbert tells the story of that psychologist who is in the US, and she's called in to help give psychological support to Vietnamese boat people. And she's terrified, and she thinks, what do I have to offer to these people who have been through everything? And then she starts talking to these individuals, and they're all talking about their love stories and about their mum who stayed home, and my partner's now off with my sister because they were on the same boat, and all of this. And she said, it's humans, they're all the same at the end of the day. So is it the same with your coaching, and do you find that the issues that organizations or groups have to solve are always the same?
I think you've answered that question, and I love that quote too, where it is that, isn't it? And people want to be loved, they want to be heard, they want to help, they want to grow, they want to, I think it is. I think, and
So what kind of issues do you find yourself solving again and again? Is it what you discussed, what it brought you first to coaching, this communication breakdown between the boroughs of London? Is that the kind of thing that tends to happen again and again, or is it I don't know, is it abuse of power or lack of, I don't know, what kind of issues do you have to solve again and again?
And it's not even me solving, I give the space.
Or help to solve. Help
exactly.
them to solve.
Yeah. I think it's about unleashing talent. I think people, like, the best thing you can do is let that person grow into their own being. And but I think the system can put the people in a box or control them. And this is why I love coaching, is that it's about that it is the key skills. I mean, there's all these like leadership, we want to collaborate better, we want to innovate, the systemic issues, but it's sort of like going back to, quite often, it's about, well, how can you sit, and be present with somebody? How can you really listen? How can you ask great questions in order to stimulate their thinking? And also how, quite often we want to shut things down. We want a clear answer. But actually, can we open it up and sit with that ambiguity? And like some of the guests have talked about this, the wheel of nature, the north, the north, south, east, west, and they are all different parts of our personality, or in many respects, but also the way we are. So the south, can we really feel, learning to feel and articulate that, like the emotional intelligence, or actually going into the west is like to see the shadow side of what your behavior, or the north, like, get a clear plan and break it down, and the east, what is your vision? So there's sort of, just helping people step into that. And it's really uncomfortable. It's really it's self-development's really uncomfortable. I'm very grateful for all those HR and L&D people who drag people into development, because a lot of people wouldn't on their own, I think. Or but life is such that it prods us to wake up, whether we're having, whether in our partnerships, or our family, or our school, or our teacher, or our boss, or the person who annoys us down the road, spins us into some sense of consciousness. Hey.
Well, I mean, I've heard you say before, we all have that one wound that gets us to become conscious. So you probably need to be wounded yourself in a certain respect in order to resonate with the wounds of other people. But life tends to bring that to you. I'm sure you have your own wounds that you carry, and feel free, to keep them to yourself in your secret heart. But do you find that having your own wounds has given you the empathy and the compassion that you also need in order to be a good listener, as you are when you're facilitating?
Yeah, I'm sort of so curious, and sort of sending back, whether you think that's true too, that do we need a wound? You know,
I think we all
yeah,
have one anyway. I
Yeah.
think we all have one anyway. But I also find that quite often, in my life, for example, I grew up to be relatively judgmental because of the environment I grew up, and every time life has given me the opportunity to step in someone else's shoes, every time I've thought, oh my God, this would never happen to me. Sure enough, not long after, life brought that, and I was right there, and I was like, remember that person? Remember how you thought you would never do that? Well, you're right here doing it right now. And so that's why I think, and you know, Ray and all the other elders that you interviewed, they're very conscious of their own wounds. And they even, some of them, you know, Emerald talked beautifully about the family that she grew up with and what that did for her. And I think we all carry our wounds, and they make us into compassionate and empathetic human beings.
Yeah, I do believe that. And my wound, and I guess, is or what I've identified with and what resonates in terms of being free. And my mum and dad decided to go to Russia for a holiday for 3 months. And my sister was 4.5 and I was 3, and we stayed with my auntie. And I do, I do reflect back. I don't, that actually that sense of abandonment, or it was so there's lots of there. And I think, and it's you can sort of see it play out whether. And I think that's something about either trust, it's something about my introversion. It's cultivated a lot of introversion. I need a lot of time on my own, about trust and relationships. And I think, and also in many respects, some of my romantic relationships have only lasted for 3 months. So there's a bit of a mirror.
The number 3. So there's 3 girls. Yeah, the number 3 is big in your life. There's 3 of you. Your parents went away when you were 3. They went away for 3 months, and your relationships last 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah, like no, really, it's interesting. And I think that in all my development has got the about understanding love. And when Ray was the wonderful one, when I turned up and I went, I talk about, love a lot. And what is it? Hafiz said, there's the only subject is love. But and particularly in my coaching, like talking about love, and I said, but I feel a bit of a fraud, because where is the examples of love? Where is it tangibly manifest itself? Whether it be in a relationship, or I don't have children. Like, where is it physically? And he said right in front, he said, I see it in you.
And yes, you are love.
Yeah, and that's the first person that had ever mirrored that way. Like, and goodness, I feel a little bit teary already. But and so on that vision quest, I actually did a marriage ceremony to my own self. And because he said, do you know your inner man? Yeah, so that sort of inner man exploration. And so that's, and I guess about love is about the own self-love. So I am very, probably what I see is or helping people with their own self-love. Yeah, because it's,
yes, you definitely do. Because
because I think that's where the answers. I think there's a journey that we can go outside. So typically, a person will get married, or they'll have kids, or they have, a house and career, and then you go, and quite often it's the journey, isn't it? It's like, well, what now? I'm still not satisfied. Is there something more? And you see that it's typical. It's the midlife crisis, but it's the soul journey. And I guess that I haven't had those things. It's been sort of psyche, or the universe has sort of said, you've got to look inside. And so my journey is about that, looking inside, more so than manifesting it externally in a way.
You know, there is so much love in you, and you've shared it. You know, it's not just an internal journey. There's been a big external journey as well. You certainly, I mean, you know, you're a valuable member of your family. You mean the world to your niece and nephew. You definitely mean the world to your friends. You've been in relationships, so whilst there was love there, you shared love with these people. They were just not meant to follow you on your journey. They had a different journey to be on. But also you've given so much to all the people you've coached and facilitated for. You know, there's so many different ways to coach and facilitate, but yours is always led by love and empathy.
So lovely you to say that. And I do, in terms of, and I will say, some men have their first dollar. The man who's really rich has their first friend. I have Nicola. She is 10 days older than me, and her mum and her, when she was 10 days old, picked up me as a baby and my mum from the hospital, and we lived side by side. Our fathers were vets. Our older sisters were best friends, and you know, we went to university together. She's in Edinburgh, so we've, you know, that there's a, yeah, the love thread has been very consistent there.
Yeah, in your friendships, in your family, and in your work. But I would argue also probably in your personal relationships for the time that they lasted, you know. And I think, you know, your name is interesting because you're Penelope, and Penelope is in history and mythology, she's the weaver who undoes her weaving every evening because she's been asked to choose a suitor for a new husband. She's the wife of Ulysses, and everybody thinks Ulysses is dead, but she knows in her heart that he isn't, that he will come for her one day. So she weaves all day long, just as you weave the strands of all our stories and of all the different things that you do. And in the evening, she undoes it because she's not attached to her weaving, but she's waiting for that person. So that's you, Penelope. No, what a. I mean, what do you think about people having certain names? There's never a coincidence.
No, you're so beautiful. That's so beautiful. So yeah, I do have some stories around. Actually, I remember this transaction analysis training I did, and that thing was, how do you introduce your name? Yeah, there's always a story around it, isn't it? And I was called Bridget for the first 24 hours. When I was mum gave birth alone, and my dad was carving a cow at the time, and then so it was Bridget, and then he came back going, oh, I don't really like Bridget, and I like Penny, and mum said something about I like Penelope. So yeah, so I've actually always been either New Zealand, either Penny, but I love Penelope, and when I got to Italy, actually, Guido told me, he said I wanted to call my kids, my older daughter Penelope, but I didn't want her fate, and I was like, he said I didn't want to wait around for
the right person,
the right guy, yeah. So, and have doubt that would he come back, but I love the response of Penelope, even you know, I loved turning up in Greece and saying that I was Penelope, and I think, yeah, stepping into your name, you know, stepping into
owning it,
owning it in that story. And I love the weaving. I feel like, you know, like Emerald had said, you know, when I came across that tarantula, you know, of course a Penelope is going to meet a tarantula, you know, and so I do think that it was sort of, you know, I'm really drawn to that. I love that analogy of weaving. I think, you know, the world needs the weavers, and also this faith, like there's a lovely sense of longing, you know. So I long for the deep, intimate, expansive relationship with, you know, the man of, you know, with a, you know, beautiful man that can be alongside that journey. And so it is a longing, and it is a faith and a hope. Yeah.
but also a commitment, because Penelope in mythology made a commitment as a young woman to this man whom she married, and she kept to it, you know, against all adversity. And I think you're a great example of courage and commitment, because you, as we've discussed before, you like challenges, but you don't give up easily. You're not a quitter, and that's a big thing.
But I had a thank you. But and I've got a amazing. Well, not amazing. I think this will be interesting about. Okay, no. So but about the trusting. So there was a moment when I used to go off. I do solos. So I was in Italy at the time, and I went into the Abruzzo mountains, and there was a moment where the morning I didn't think the sun would come up, and it was a moment where it's like, wow, you have such a lack of trust. How, like it was like, really, it's amazing, eh? Like it's an amazing thought. And so of course I talked to Ray about it, and he so beautifully, once again, no judgment, he just said, when some cultures, they do have people to help the sun come up, and it was sort of like, we know it is, but we need a little bit of help. And that's the thing. So it wasn't he doesn't judge a pathological, oh my goodness. It was like, yeah, it's just, we know and we try, sort of like we or whatever. Isn't that beautiful? But yeah.
Yes. Definitely. Well, I think we're coming close to wrapping it up. But before you go, this is very important. Now, this isn't going to really work so much for the listeners, but for the viewers, you have to. So for the listeners, you have to know that if you ever go on the YouTube to have a look at Penelope's lovely face, she has some things around her when she interviews. And so I think if we're going to do the Penelope interview today, then she needs to explain all these things that are behind her. So there's a forest, there is some water, there's some cups, and there are these symbols. There's the spiral, and then there's a drawing behind you. If you just want to introduce us to them very briefly, that would be great.
So Ricky Tolanar is the artist. So she is doing 100 waves. She's a local Mallorquin artist. I'll put a link into the notes. That piece, when I was 50 last year, we couldn't go out to the forest, and so she made me this one here. I've got these beautiful cups from Tomeu in Mallorca. These are my.
We can't see the cups. Can you show them us quickly? Yeah.
I just love them.
Wow.
They're just so beautiful.
And then the ones behind you here, the turquoise ones?
So these ones here?
Yeah.
So this is the Mallorquin pattern, and so I have just loved, I don't know, I just love this pattern, this color, and it feels very grown up. And and this is the Kiwiana. So this is a tea towel that my friends Nikki and Rock gave me, that I put it in a frame. So this is all celebrating New Zealand, and this is also New Zealand. This is a Pahutakawa tree, and the kiwi from my friend Caroline, and this spiral is up from Utah. So I love spirals. So this is my little gathering.
Amazing. Wow. So spirals of joy, we say in Birthlight, that the life should be a spiral of joy, Yeah.
So that, my love. Yeah.
Yes. So thank you very much for sharing so much with us today. I'm sure there's tons more to talk about, so maybe we can do another one sometime. But I hope that all your listeners and viewers feel they know a little bit more about you now. Thank you for sharing so openly.
Oh, thank you for your beautiful grace and questions and curiosity, and it means so much. You
have to do the proper closing now.
Yeah, okay.
Me too. But you have to do the proper closing, because I'm addicted to hearing that at the end. Yeah.
So we'll put a pause.
So we'll put a pause.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll put a pause.
So we'll put a pause here. Yeah.
So we'll put a pause here and see you back for the next Earth Converse podcast. In the meantime, go out and enjoy Earth, one conversation at a time.